Imagine a time when expressing your faith could cost you your life, when every word of worship was an act of bravery, and every prayer might be your last. Amid the shadows of the mighty Roman Empire comes a story so extraordinary it seems fictional, but it is entirely real. Chapter 1. Life and Martyrdom. In the ancient city of Antioch, the third largest in the Roman Empire, a man was about to make a choice that would echo through the centuries. The year was 107 AD, and Bishop Ignatius faced a decision that would forever alter the course of Christianity. Emperor Trajan had issued an ultimatum: renounce Christ or face the beasts in the Colosseum. Born around 35 AD, Ignatius bore a prophetic name derived from the Latin ignis, meaning fire, and like fire, his faith burned intensely to the very end. Unlike many Christian leaders of his time, Ignatius was not born into the faith. His conversion came later in life, following encounters with Saint John the Evangelist. As the third bishop of Antioch and successor to Saint Peter himself, Ignatius became a central figure in the early church. His leadership was defined by profound understanding of the faith and a charisma that drew both believers and unwanted attention from Roman authorities. During his final journey to Rome, chained and escorted by soldiers, Ignatius turned what should have been a humiliating march into a missionary endeavor. At every port where his ship docked, Christian communities gathered to greet him, and he used these moments to strengthen their faith. It was during this journey that he uttered his most famous words: "I am God's wheat, and I will be ground by the teeth of beasts to become the pure bread of Christ." This was not merely a declaration of faith, but a testament that would inspire generations of Christians to stand firm in their convictions, even in the face of extreme adversity. When he finally arrived in Rome, Ignatius faced his fate with a serenity that even impressed his guards. To him, the beasts of the Colosseum were not threats but instruments of his ultimate union with Christ. Yet, what happened during his final night in Rome and the letters he penned during his journey would reveal an even more profound side of this saint. Chapter 2. From Persecution to Conversion. In the bustling city of Antioch in the 1st century, a young man from a pagan family was about to have an encounter that would change not only his life, but also the history of Christianity. Ignatius, born into an influential household, grew up despising the new sect spreading rapidly throughout the city. What few know is that before his conversion, Ignatius was known for his fiery temper and staunch anti-Christian stance. Some accounts suggest he even participated in the persecution of Christ's followers, echoing the story of another infamous persecutor, Saul of Tarsus. Yet, destiny had different plans for Ignatius. The turning point in his life came through an unexpected encounter with Saint John the Evangelist. The exact circumstances of their meeting remain a mystery, but historical records suggest it occurred during one of the apostles' visits to Antioch. What began as a heated debate ended in a profound spiritual transformation. John, the last living apostle at the time, shared something with Ignatius that few had the privilege of hearing: first-hand accounts of Jesus. The evangelist recounted intimate moments with the Master, including the Last Supper and the events in the Garden of Gethsemane. These stories touched Ignatius in ways he never anticipated. Ignatius's conversion was so profound that the Christian community initially struggled to accept him. How could they trust someone who had once persecuted them? Yet, much like Paul, his transformation proved genuine through his relentless dedication to the faith he once opposed. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of his conversion is how it shaped his understanding of martyrdom. Having been a persecutor himself, Ignatius developed a unique perspective on the significance of sacrificing oneself for Christ, a perspective that would prepare him for his own fate in the arenas of Rome. Chapter 3. The Legacy of a Martyr. In a world where Christianity was still in its infancy, Ignatius of Antioch left a legacy that would forever revolutionize the Church's history. His impact went beyond his heroic martyrdom and extended to theological contributions that continue to shape contemporary Christian thought. Ignatius was the first to use the term Catholic Church in his writings, coining an expression that would become universal. In his letter to the Smyrnians, he wrote, "Wherever the bishop appears, there let the community be, just as wherever Jesus Christ is, there is the Catholic Church." This simple yet profound statement laid the foundation for understanding the Church's universality. His contributions to the hierarchical structure of the Church were groundbreaking. Ignatius provided the earliest clear explanation of the bishop's role as Christ's direct representative in the community. On that note, if you're interested in inspiring stories of saints and their contributions to the Church, I recommend the ebook 50 Saints, Stories and Prayers for Divine Intervention, available in our store. Amid intense persecutions and emerging heresies, Ignatius set forth principles to identify true Christian doctrine. His emphasis on unity among believers and episcopal authority created an organizational model that helped the Church endure the turbulence of its early centuries. Ignatius's influence extended to liturgy and the sacraments. His detailed descriptions of early Eucharistic celebrations offer a fascinating glimpse into how the first Christians practiced their faith. He was the first to describe the Eucharist as the medicine of immortality, a metaphor that remains deeply resonant today. Perhaps his most enduring contribution was his understanding of martyrdom as the ultimate witness of love for Christ. In an era without YouTube to share testimonies of faith, Ignatius demonstrated how a courageous death could serve as a sermon more powerful than 1,000 words. Chapter 4, The Early Church and the Bishop of Fire. Few realize that the challenges faced by the first century Church feel surprisingly modern. It was a time of religious fake news, theological disputes in the social networks of the day's synagogues and marketplaces, and spiritual influencers promising alternative paths to salvation. In this chaotic environment, Ignatius emerged as a voice of clarity and authority. What's particularly intriguing about his episcopate in Antioch is how he navigated the diverse currents of thought threatening to divide the Church. While some advocated for a Christianity entirely separate from Judaism, and others sought to retain all Jewish practices, Ignatius proposed a middle path, preserving the essence of the faith without losing the Christian identity. A fascinating discovery about his ministry is his ability to unite divided communities. In Antioch, a cosmopolitan city where cultures clashed constantly, Ignatius managed to synthesize Greek thought and Judeo-Christian tradition, laying theological foundations still in use today. The Bishop of Antioch was also a pioneer in what we might call religious marketing. He understood the importance of symbols and effective communication. For instance, he popularized the term Christian as a positive identity marker during a time when it was used as an insult. One of his most significant contributions to the early Church was his understanding of episcopal authority. Ignatius viewed the bishop not as a religious bureaucrat, but as a spiritual father to the community. This revolutionary concept transformed how the Church understood leadership and service. Perhaps the most groundbreaking aspect of his thought was his vision of church unity. In an age of divisions and disputes, Ignatius insisted that Christianity's true strength lay in its ability to unite diverse people under a shared faith. This message resonates powerfully in today's world of polarization and conflict. Chapter 5, The 7 Letters in Detail. Ignatius's journey to Rome produced something extraordinary. 7 letters that became some of the greatest treasures of early Christian literature. What makes these documents even more remarkable is that they were written under military escort as their author marched toward certain death. The letter to the Ephesians reveals a leader deeply concerned with church unity. Ignatius compares the Christian community to a celestial orchestra where every member plays an essential role. His use of musical metaphors to explain profound theological concepts was groundbreaking for his time. The letter to the Magnesians addresses a surprisingly modern issue, generational conflict in the Church. With remarkable wisdom, Ignatius encourages respect for younger leaders while honoring the experience of elders. His message of intergenerational harmony remains relevant today. In the letter to the Trallians, Ignatius provides a unique reflection on spiritual authority. He explores how power within the Church should be exercised with humility and service, not domination. The letter to the Romans stands out for its personal and emotional tone. Here, Ignatius declares his famous statement about being God's wheat more than a letter. It is a spiritual testament revealing the soul of a man facing his destiny with extraordinary courage. To the Philadelphians, Ignatius writes about the importance of orthodoxy and doctrinal unity. In the letter to the Smyrnians, he offers one of the earliest written testimonies of the structure of the early church. Finally, in his letter to Polycarp, he provides practical advice on pastoral leadership that would influence generations of religious leaders. What is most impressive about these letters, written under such adverse circumstances, is how they continue to speak directly to the hearts of modern Christians. They are not just historical or theological artifacts, but living expressions of a faith that transformed the world. Chapter 6, The Martyrdom That Changed History. On an autumn morning in 107 AD, the Roman Colosseum bore witness to one of the most extraordinary moments in its blood-stained history. This was not just another execution, it was the culmination of an epic journey that would forever redefine the meaning of Christian sacrifice. The Roman authorities hoped that Ignatius's execution would deter other Christians. Ironically, the opposite occurred. Contemporary accounts describe how his courage in the face of the beasts inspired a wave of conversions. Spectators who had come to witness a spectacle of death instead saw a profound demonstration of unshakable faith. A little-known detail is that Ignatius was one of the first martyrs whose death was documented in detail. Eyewitnesses recorded his final moments, describing how he remained serene even as the beasts were released. His last words, spoken loudly for all to hear, were a prayer of thanksgiving. Modern historians have discovered that his martyrdom had such a significant impact that Roman authorities altered their persecution strategies. Public executions of Christian leaders were found to have the unintended effect of turning martyrs into powerful symbols of spiritual resistance. The site of his execution in the Colosseum became a pilgrimage destination for early Christians. Recent archaeological excavations have uncovered ancient inscriptions bearing his name, underscoring how his story inspired generations of believers in the centuries that followed. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of his martyrdom is how it transformed the Christian understanding of suffering. Ignatius did not view his death as a defeat, but as a victory, a revolutionary perspective that fundamentally changed how Christians faced persecution in the centuries to come. Conclusion: a legacy for eternity. The martyrdom of Saint Ignatius of Antioch was not just a dramatic moment in Christian history, it was a turning point that continues to resonate through the ages. His words, written nearly 2 millennia ago, still echo powerfully in our modern search for authenticity and meaning. If this story touched your heart and you want to deepen your spiritual journey, I invite you to become a member of this channel. As a member, you'll gain access to exclusive content about saints, martyrs, and extraordinary figures who shaped the history of faith. We offer different membership levels, each with unique benefits to enrich your spiritual experience. And remember Ignatius's immortal words, "I am God's wheat in a world that often seems to lose its way." His example of courage and conviction remains a beacon of hope and inspiration. May his story continue to inspire generations to live their faith with the same passion and dedication. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the notification bell to receive more content like this. Share it with those you believe would benefit from this inspiring story. Until the next video, and may God bless you.